to this Road Safety GB Analyst webinar. We've got something a little bit different today. We're going to be talking roads policing. So for those of you that were at the Joining the Dots conference last week, you'll have heard me kind of tee this up. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Rob, who's going to introduce the guys from Staffordshire Police and take over the webinar from here. So over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Nathan. So, yeah, just before I introduce the guys, I just wanted to give a bit of an explanation as to what we're trying to do here. So, over the last 6 months or so, I've been able to look at the Joining the Dots network and how it works, and it really is a wonderful thing. But I'd really like to try and broaden and enrich the conversations that we're having, and perhaps involve people from collision response and enforcement, and perhaps get a better understanding of one another's roles, because we're all looking for the same thing at the end of the day. We're looking to reduce the number of people killed and seriously injured. So I'm delighted to introduce a couple of former colleagues of mine from Staffordshire Police, Chief Inspector Scott McGrath and Detective Inspector Lewis Haigh. Scott is the head of roads policing for Staffordshire Police, and Lewis heads up the serious collision investigation unit. I've been privy to see their presentation, and I think you're going to find it fascinating. There is a Q&A section that I think is set up for us. If you've got any questions you want to type out, but there will be an opportunity to answer questions after the presentation anyway. So I think I've covered everything. So, gentlemen, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nathan. So good morning, everybody. So I'm Scott McGrath. I'm head of roads policing here in Staffordshire. For those not familiar with the county, home of Alton Towers and also the mighty Port Vale, who've just managed to get through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. Also the land of oatcakes. So yeah, today we're going to give you a bit of an overview of Staffordshire's roads policing approach. It's relatively new. I would like to think one of the more forward-thinking and advanced roads policing units across the country, given the investment that the force has given. So it'll be a brief overview of the wider department. And then Rob, as Rob's already alluded, Lewis Haigh, Detective Inspector, runs our serious collision investigation unit, and get into some of the detail around how we record collisions and some of that data, some of the challenges that we face.
Yeah, just so everyone's used to my voice, I am not from Staffordshire, so you'll have to turn your northern translator on. And of the two of us, I'm Phil Mitchell to Scott's Grant. But we will share the presentation. Like Scott said about the Q&A, I also don't mind if someone has a burning issue, please just hit us up. But if you give us a second, I'll share the presentation and we'll get going.
So we're just going to start with it's just a brief video that we've put together for previous presentations that we've delivered to a wide variety of people, organisations and partners, just to give you a bit of a view of some of the work the road crime do on a daily basis. Okay, thank you. So a very theatrical video, but does give a bit of a flavour for some of the work that the road crime team does. So a little bit of history, I suppose, really around the background of how the road crime team in Staffordshire formed. So going back some time, Staffordshire used to be covered by what was the CMPG, the Central Motorway Policing Group. That was formed back in 1990 and consisted of a collaborative approach between 4 forces, Staffordshire, West Midlands, West Mercia and Warwickshire. Over time, forces withdrew and went back to covering their own force areas. West Mercia left in 2017, Warwickshire before that in 2007, leaving just Staffordshire and West Midlands remaining. A decision outside our control was taken back in 2024 that the West Midlands would be taking their resources back, which left Staffordshire in the position of basically policing the motorway network, strategic road network in Staffordshire for the first time in 40 years. Fortunately, the force invested back into the roads policing space, and that was when I was brought in, June, July 24, where we oversaw the dissolution from CMPG and set up Staffordshire's road crime team. One of the key elements was to make sure that we continued to deliver that service to road users across Staffordshire. We didn't want them to feel any different. In fact, we did want them to see an enhancement. We wanted to be intelligence-led. I'm very much from an intelligence background, both overt and covert, as well as investigation. So I wanted to bring that into the road policing space. And ultimately ensuring value for money, looking at innovative opportunities to tackle high harm road users, criminality. And we had 2 main aims, and that was to tackle criminality on the road network and reduce those killed or seriously injured on the roads of Staffordshire. We created the Operation Lightning brand. That's wider than just our roads policing team in Staffordshire, so that consists of the wider operations department. So in Staffordshire, we've got the armed response officers, dog units and tactical support teams. So they support us on a daily basis with tackling high harm road users in Staffordshire. So what do we do and what does it look like? We cover all the roads across Staffordshire, from the M6 running straight through the county to all other roads across Staffordshire. We operate a 4-shift system based out of where we are today in Doxey, which is just off the M6. Those 4 shifts cover 24/7. We have a dedicated road harm prevention team. That is primarily officers who use our motorcycle fleet. That is both marked and unmarked on the road, and also we're investing heavily in the off-road space to tackle some of those emerging challenges, not just in Staffordshire, but what we're seeing across the country. Within our command, we also have the movement of abnormal loads. A crucial part of what we do is making sure that we get that infrastructure move safely throughout the county and throughout the country. Lewis has obviously sat with me today, who heads our serious collision investigation unit. And again, we're one of a small number of forces that have invested in dedicated family liaison officers. And I can't overemphasize the importance of that enough, where we can give that dedicated service to loved ones and families of victims through road collisions. As I've said, intelligence and problem solving is at the forefront of what we do. It was very important for me personally that when officers leave here every day, that they're fully briefed. So they have a briefing twice a day, 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And literally when they turn out of the gate here at Doxey, they know whether they're going left or right, which way they're going, who they're going after, what time. And we've got that data, we've got that intelligence to direct officers to get the best outcomes. We've also got the vehicle recovery unit within our command, which is increased significantly since we set up this team. And I'll come on to some of the figures shortly around the number of vehicles that we do recover. And also we reintroduced a dedicated stolen vehicle examiner, something that we've missed for many years. And again, it's paying dividends in terms of having that dedicated opportunity to examine the amount of vehicles that we're bringing in, especially with the more sophisticated clones and some of the organised criminal activity in the vehicle crime space. And we also oversee the driver standards and vehicle telematics, which is very much internal to Staffordshire, but that's around how we improve our driving as a police service, how we reduce collisions internally, how we limit the amount of damage, and increase our public confidence across Staffordshire. So I think this was just at the tail end of the video that we just played. Again, it just shows some of the activity that the team have conducted since we went live. The asset C is there. It's actually well over 20 million now. I think we had 10 kilos of Class A only last week, so that's bumped as well over the 20 million mark. You can see there over 15,000 drivers have been stopped. Drug and drink driving has been a real key priority for us in Staffordshire. We always contribute heavily towards Operation Limit, which is the national campaign running primarily through the month of December into January. Business as usual in Staffordshire. That's what we look at, the fatal 4 offences on a daily basis. Part of our strategy was to have a very strong media and comms campaign. We have got a Facebook page, we use X, we use TikTok, we use all the mainstream social media platforms. We've got a very good relationship with the local media here in Staffordshire, and that's partly to, again, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, but we want, we don't want people to know where we are at any given time. We are a relatively small team covering a huge area, 10 local policing teams, so it's around making sure we get those key messages out, and we've also seen a huge support from the public in some of the work that we undertake to reduce KSIs, as well as tackling the fatal 4, fatal 5 offences. So Lewis will come on more to some of the detail around our KSI stats and how we record collisions. But a big part of what we've been doing, certainly for the last 6 months, is really looking at how we capture data around collisions, how we record it, and how we improve that performance to get a more detailed picture. We're working currently on a road harm index, so we want to know where we should be resourcing, where we should be deploying our resources at the right time, the right location. So that data is absolutely crucial for those deployments. And it's like anything, it's only as what you put in. So we are looking at what other data sources are available that we can overlay with the crash data. But the first thing is to get that data correct and accurate, so it supports us with that.
Perfect. And this is where I'll come in when it comes to crash and collisions. Because as Scott's already alluded to, my primary role will be with the flows, with the serious collision investigation. I also have uploads and vehicle recovery, but the SCRU is probably our main focus. And I was brought in November last year. The point being to bring in a PIP2 qualified inspector to look at how we investigate our most serious, but also take responsibility across the force for how we improve all crash reporting. Now, I will explain the difference about that in due course in terms of what my team take and what the rest of the force manage. But collision report and sharing system, the whole point of it is that we get key information for a variety of purposes. But how we get that information, how we record it, also differs significantly. And when I speak to my colleagues across the country, and I am a transferee into Staffordshire, it is a significant difference in terms of how we do it. So here in Staffordshire at the moment, there is a small proportion of the force, the road crime team, that are able to use a Pronto version. And Pronto, for anyone who doesn't know, is a Motorola based app that we use for a lot of things, ticket statements, people searches, incident attendance and updates, things like that. But from my last role, I was aware that there are 17 different versions of Pronto used by 19 different forces, is the last quote that was thrown at me. So we don't use a consistent version between multiple forces, but in Staffordshire there's a small number of officers that we currently have access to Pronto, and it is being rolled out across all frontline officers over the next 12 weeks, starting on the 23rd of March. But for anyone other than our road crime team in Staffordshire, they use Crash on the web version, and we'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But across the nation, across the 43 forces, some people even use TP07s, the old paper forms, and anyone who is an ex-bobby or a retired bobby, and there'll probably some nods across, will remember filling in a boomerang book. Well, that boomerang book used to go locally to a traffic process office, and that data correction, that data quality work, I always call it quality assurance, was done and fed back to the officer at the time. So I called them boomerang books because I never threw one in without it coming back and hitting me in the back of the head with a number of red pen marks. But at the minute, crash, some people are still using that way, and some people still have TPOs or quality assurance processes. Other people didn't. Austerity probably got rid of a lot of those tertiary roles that probably did improve data quality, and there probably was a bit of a drop off in that we are now looking to amend and get over. In relation to recording on crash, from personal experience and speaking to officers across this force, my colleagues who've transferred in from up and down the country, the consistent thing is that officers' input around traffic is based on their initial attendance at training school or whatever input they have when they start. And then it will probably focus on in the job from their tutor. And if you have a tutor that isn't interested in traffic or collisions, you'll probably deal with one and then never go again. And so the interest and awareness of frontline colleagues up and down the country varies significantly. But we are asking them to go out and deal with a whole range of incidents, having had very little training, very little on-the-job direction, and now with very little oversight after they've attended. And they could deal with just about anything in a shift. And if one of them happens within an RTC, we will expect all of the key factors to be reported within 72 hours using web crash in Staffordshire for the majority of our officers. And that is, again, not at the scene. That's when they've returned to base, when they're completing the reports. And that for us is a really big challenge and something that we're looking to fix as soon as possible, because it's inefficient. Double keying is just, for me, it's the enemy of any modern efficient process. And if we were a business, we'd probably go bust at making people do something, then write about it 3 days later. But they have to record all those key details. And they also have to make some pretty significant assessments, whether it's a non-injury based on some initial chats at the scene, whether it's a slight injury, which includes sprains, whiplash, bruises, slight cuts, or serious injury, which includes any type of fracture, internal injuries, severe cuts. And if anyone is, sat there thinking, how can an officer tell if there's an internal injury from seeing someone at the scene? They can't. We don't get special training or goggles or anything like that. They just have to kind of guess. And that's it. And out of personal experience, lately, over the last 12 months, serious injuries, including any form of head injury. And so we're seeing a significant increase in the number of serious injury RTCs. But in 2008, I was knocked off my motorbike and I had 2 compression fractures in my spine. And that was a slight injury RTC that was recorded and accepted at that time. So as times go on, definitions, understandings change. Slight changes to what fits into each category can have a significant impact on what our data and our road harm index will look like. And that's something that we obviously have to be aware of. And there's also a limitation around crash around what is serious and what isn't. This is something that within my role we do get quite frequently, where there's been an RTC, but more than 30 days pass and that person dies. And if RTC is anywhere involved, that would fall into the serious category. It wouldn't stay in the fatal category. So there are probably a few intricacies or slight changes on how crash data looks, and the context behind the picture sometimes is a little bit is probably quite significantly different. One of the things we're now going to talk through after I show you these is kind of what we're asking officers to do at the minute. This slide is intentionally messy, and I don't do this to confuse or show anyone. I'm showing it to demonstrate the challenges that our officers are currently facing. This isn't a tiny violin. This is that the system that we're asking officers to use. I couldn't fit all of the individual slides and question areas onto 1 or 2 slides. So I made one that was a little bit messy. After they've been to a scene, these officers will go on to other things. We no longer are in a position in any UK police force where an officer can attend an incident and do the paperwork straight after. We're lucky if it's the same shift. More often than not, they'll probably work a few more shifts, and if they get some downtime, it will be done before they finish that set of tour, which could be 6 shifts. and then they'll have 4 rest days and then they'll be back in. But we're asking them to get some quite intricate details. And we're, at present, our weakness that I am fully aware of and we're looking to fix is that we have a very complicated web form that feeds Crash and does record a significant amount of data, but officers are really struggling with this on a daily basis. And we're seeing a significant change when we've run a pilot with our road crime officers and the difference of not only clarity and quality of information, but quantity. So because they're doing it at the scene, the things that are more obvious at the time are getting recorded at the time. Whereas if I'm asking somebody 4 days later, 5 days later, after they've been to all sorts of other things and done all sorts of other reports and probably been driving at 100 miles an hour and punched and spat at and all the other things that our officers do on a daily basis, and then I'm asking them, do you remember a key detail? They don't remember it. And that isn't a criticism, that's acknowledging that we're human and that they're doing the best they can, and we perhaps haven't given them the ability to get that best data at the moment. And one of the big key things for me that, you know, Crash boils down to is, well, we're asking them to make some really snap judgments around our road safety factors, behaviour, experience, distraction, impairment, whether or not non-motorised road users were involved, what the road condition was, speed and driver behaviour, and things around the vehicles. Now, one thing I'd just like to maybe come up to, you know, to ask you, you know, to think about, but before we get to a Q&A part of the session or take questions at the end is, you know, how many of these could be known at the time? I'm really fortunate that in the incidents I investigate, or my team investigate and I oversee, more often than not, I have a forensic collision specialist that will assess a lot of these things, but that can take up to 12 months at least. I'll also pay for independent experts. I'll do vehicle telematics. I'll download airbag modules, and that's just a few basic tactics. If I really, you know, when I really want to get into what really caused an incident, it can be up to 18 months worth of specialist reports, assessment, LiDAR scans of the scene. Just for that, we are asking frontline officers at the moment to go and, in a snap decision, assess some things that I don't think necessarily are ever going to be immediately apparent. I'm not asking them that, we're not saying, yes, you definitely have to say one of these is there or not, but we're asking them a lot of questions that I would argue some of them you wouldn't be able to tell. Mobile phones, for example, unless you have a very brave SIO who's willing to policy up breaching national standards around how we handle digital exhibits, you can't triage a phone at the scene and check it, because quite rightly there'd be officers getting in all sorts of sticky messes by unlocking people's phones and seeing whether or not they were using them. Sometimes, depending on where the casualties are by the time the police get there, impairment assessments can't be done. So there's a range of factors that we have to consider around what really drives it and what we get out of Crash and when we get it out, because at the minute we're asking for a lot of these assessments to be done within 72 hours. And one thing that I found is at the end of my investigations into killed serious injury RTCs, it's normally much further down the line that Crash would probably be able to get the real quality data that we need to feed into some of those road safety factors. And this, I know one of the person who presented me with this information is in the audience, so thank you for that. This is our data fed back from our local authority in relation to the kind of files, the volume of files and the information we're putting out and what's happening. So in Staffordshire, we submitted over 134 a month in 2025. That's 1,615 files, of which 100% of those files are checked and go through a validation process. This includes comparing details from what's in Crash to the police log. Now, a storm reference contains significant amounts of data. It's everything from the moment the person picks up the phone to tell the police to every officer, every transmission, and they have to troll through that, checking against Crash and that storm incident. They'll also view additional information available on Crash, perhaps email the officer, ask them to re-review the body-worn footage, and only when all of those avenues have been exhausted, normally it resolves by a best guess. And a best guess when it comes to a system that we should be able to put objective information in is, again, affecting that overall data picture. But each file containing, you know, each crash report containing one person, one casualty will have 70 data fields. What I will say is very, very rarely does a single person, single vehicle RTC occur on any road in the United Kingdom. I will show you an example of one, but I'll probably also explain how even with only 70 data fields, we really struggled on that one. But as people involved in incidents and vehicles involved in incidents increase, the number of data fields that need to be completed at the scene or soon after just grows exponentially. And we do get a lot of feedback, both internally and from our partners, around the quality of what we're putting in, and also the quality of the people putting it in. It's probably a good indicator of where officers are struggling the most, where there are the biggest challenges, and how we perhaps need to look at. It starts with, do we have the training? Do the people know what they're doing? But also, are we giving them the ability to be able to do what it is we expect of them? So 85% of our collision forms require some sort of amendment. This could include blank fields or amending incorrect data, and 40% contains significant amount of missing data, and that requires extensive research to complete. And from a business perspective, what we've done is we've deployed someone and they've spent hours probably at a roadside incident. And then we've paid them again to come back to a police station and sit and put it all into a system. And then some of our partners have paid somebody to read through that and check it. And then the feedback comes back to the officer to be paid a third time to try and review and try and do it. Now, that's not double keying. That's now to the point of quadruple keying. There is a massive inefficiency in this way, and it's something that we recognise. And it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for our partners, but it's something that we have to solve because of the pressures on UK policing and the UK public sector as a whole. Because this is really, we recognise the importance of this, but what we're trying to do is identify the best way to solve that and improve it going forward. Common erroneous issues that are fed back to us include directions of travel, locations and impact points. And just on this, directions of travel, someone will say left or right, or towards Bacup, my hometown, let's use a non-Staffordshire town, or Kidsgrove to Hanley, whichever way it is. There's no prompt within Crash or within Pronto to say means compass direction. Very simple. What are you asking the officer at the time? Because this officer, it's just another form. And I will come back to my a little soliloquy about why people use apps and why the police use the opposite of apps later. But officers are making very common, simple mistakes that we need to double check that they understand what they're being asked. Direction of travel, where is the location, and where are the impact points on a vehicle, and how can you tell? And near side, offside, things like that are things that if you're roads policing or if you like cars, you'll know. If you're not, you probably won't. And common missing fields, interpretation of a collision, the layout. People don't like to draw anymore, probably because if they're anything like me, they would have failed any level of art exam, and it just looks like boxes. But actually, boxes sometimes are probably the best way as long as they've got the right directions on. Details and whether or not we've even done the basics like preliminary roadside drug and alcohol tests. So those basic tests are things that we're just missing, and it's something that, for me, the culture can be changed. It almost to a point of the system could feed the culture in relation to them. You could prevent submission without the answer without that question being answered. But those are our common ones, and those are the feedback that we're getting. And we take that into local feedback. And one of the next steps for us is that will be on our local performance command boards. So when our LPT commanders for each area are doing their monthly reviews of performance, they'll get data on the number of outstanding reports that are due, number of mistakes being made. And this isn't to identify the nails that need hammering. This is to identify where training and support is needed, because it could well be that Lewis Haigh at Hanley is missing these errors because he's got a higher workload than everybody else on his shift, because he shouts up for the most incidents, and actually needs the most development in terms of support to show how to balance their commitment. Because like everybody else, I don't genuinely believe that anybody in policing comes in to do a bad job. I think they come in to try and do everything they can, and measuring that and pulling that is part of the leadership challenge in policing at the moment. So we're now going to go through a couple of incidents, well, 4 incidents that happened, 5 incidents, sorry, that happened in Staffordshire. I will give you a quick heads up. The site of accidents, I apologise, there aren't any people visible, but there are the aftermath of some collisions. I'm just going to give you a bit of a steer through what you can see from the images and kind of what happened afterwards, what we know to have happened, but what probably wasn't that obvious as a result of initial attendance and that first. Probably I will always say the golden hour, but that's just because I'm a detective by trade. But effectively, our initial inquiries: what did we know, and how did we actually figure it out? Okay, so what you can see here is an RTC that did happen in the road, but by the time we arrived, neither of them were in the road. So we have a van with front end damage and collision damage to the near side, and we have a Honda Civic with a complete and utter obliteration of the near side B pillar and roof intrusion. And on the offside, it has front and rear damage in terms of doors completely concave and wheels ripped off on the rear offside. When we get there, we can't speak to either driver. Extricate from vehicles taken to hospital, but we have 2 vehicles that are on the roadside, not in the road, and we have no idea which the point of impact was. Obviously, it was the front of the van, but how did it get scratches down the side? Which was the first side that was hit by the Civic, and how did the other side? Is that old damage? Is it new damage? Were they driving and already a bit of a nail? And this actually took quite a bit of putting back together. What actually happened is significant speed collision at a crossroads, and it's a proper crossroads, 4-way crossroads, where the van has made initial contact with near side of Civic. The Civic has spun as they both continued in the direction the van was going, and as it's done a 180, it's been hit again on the opposite side, so a double whammy hit on the Civic, and it's then carried on at such force that it's gone pavement, through fence, into tree. But on attendance, with no one to speak to, nobody really independent that could help us, those officers are being asked to get 70 data points per collision to record direction of travel or where it happened, where the point of impact was. Now, level of injury wise, this was serious, but within Staffordshire Police, and this varies from force to force, this incident may not always have generated a attendance of a forensic collision investigator. So the specialist LiDAR scanning, putting the scene back together, doing specialist calculations in relation to conspicuity. So in terms of how visible people were, road grip testing, things like that would not be done in all cases, even where the damage is this severe to the vehicle. And so you may be left with an officer who that shift has gone out to a missing child, a domestic incident, shoplifting, a robbery, and then they're being asked to attend this with little training and put it back together and record that into crash. And we are recognising that that is a challenge. And what we're looking to do is maximise our ability to capture as much data as possible to turn that qualitative stuff there in terms of what you see, what you smell, what you hear, who you can speak to, and get that into the quantitative boxes that we really need for crash to say, you know, give us that information, give us something that we can translate into an accurate data picture. But on this one, because of a call to the police, we had time, date, location, so that was really helpful. Because at least we had a starter for, we knew it was the light conditions, the road conditions. This, however, image 1 is direction of travel of the vehicle. Image 2 is where the vehicle ended up. And if you can see at the bottom of the image on the right, you'll see a small white object. That is a single vehicle where a dog walker discovered the vehicle on their morning walk. So it was a dog walker. It was at the bottom of a steep embankment very early in the morning. However, there was no indication of when the RTC happened, and unfortunately, the occupant was deceased. So best guess is that they have travelled down the road from the direction that image 1 was taken. We have no idea what time. We have no idea how many days they were there. We have no idea what the lighting conditions or grip were like at the time. And because of the multiple points of impact on the way down, tree after tree after tree, the mechanical assessments of the vehicle as well, which takes some significant time, and readily available to any attending officer. So whenever we're running a serious investigation in my department, we will always try and balance forensic assessment, then mechanical assessment. And we'll try and get that done within the first week where we can using our FCIs, but it isn't always manageable. And again, there is that competing demand of our forces set the challenge of crash to be completed within 72 hours, and then there's no review point. I would always argue that in some cases we could probably give some indication, but is it worthwhile that we do a follow-up crash update on the other side? And should that be something that is routine, or is it almost automated at that point, that in 6 months' time you get the reminder to recheck it as anything become more clear? But at the minute, we would have to get that report in as soon as possible, and hopefully just give, at best, it's a guess, I would argue, in some of these cases. Okay, this one, just for everyone's reference, the police van in the background is going the right way. The vehicles in front of us aren't. And when officers attended this, you've got, this is the A50, A51 Rugeley bypass. So it's a 50 mile an hour road, the A51 Rugeley bypass. This was a very high speed impact. But upon attendance to the scene, the FCI, the DC from my department, sorry, the DC from my department and the FCI looked at this, and one of the first questions is, well, was the white car going contra? So was it going against the flow of traffic? It's been pushed up and out. So, you know, your initial hypothesis in attending this, I would argue, was the Audi in lane 1? Was the white car going contra? Did the impact happen? Did they separate and split at that point? Were they both going in the same direction? Well, we just don't know at that initial time. And actually, again, when people have recovered, when people can be spoken to, when we get CCTV, all of these things take time. They were both going in the right direction, fortunately, but it was a very high speed impact that completely spun, and we're probably very lucky that vehicle, the other vehicle wasn't completely thrown over. So difficult, but we get through, we get on in terms of progression, in terms of that. The next one, I just want to go through in terms of, the next are a couple of videos. I'm going to go through and give you a very quick overview of kind of my initial thoughts, but the second video is a bit longer. And I'm probably just going to want you to reflect upon those road safety factors, and I'll give you an idea of perhaps what some of the people who've watched it have said to me in terms of their initial thoughts and what it could be. And we will probably then actually clarify what was clear when we got through and did our full investigation. But the first one, you need to be looking at the centre where you see the national speed limit sign. That is where the incident happens. It happens so quickly that you run the risk of missing it. Okay, so that collision involved a VW transporter van. Those vans probably weigh best part of 2.5 ton. What hit it to spin it from going, if you think about going east, it ended up going northwest in terms of your compass points, was a motorbike. So the force of a less than 200 kilo motorbike hitting a 2.5 ton van was done at such a speed that it lifted the van and spun it almost 180 degrees on its axis. And the driver didn't have a clue what happened. The rider of the bike obviously was in no condition to tell us what happened. And all the witnesses were so shocked that they couldn't really piece together an accurate account of that. And had this camera footage not been available, another camera footage up the road, again, when you think back to those factors of direction of travel, point of impact, which way was the van going, a real challenge for officers attending. And these scenes, and this isn't me being dramatic, these scenes, Rob, from experience, you'll know, it is like walking through a war zone. I've had the great honour of investigating a significant number since November, most recently this weekend, but it's a challenge, and trying to put these things back together is hard, and it's my dedicated job. And so across the piece, across the others, and we'll go into the split shortly, I just want you to be aware of that and to see kind of the impact of perhaps how hard it is for them to see that. Translate that into usable data. How do you look at those and how can we improve it? I have my own views around, and it's not because I'm lazy, but I don't see the point in doing something that can be done for me in terms of automation. So when I attend a scene and I PNC a vehicle, that should automatically populate into my crash, and it should ask me as simply as any other well-known app would, is the registered keeper also the driver? And if I can verify that at a point, then I can select yes, and it's less clicks than I would do. I want how we record crime, how we record crashes, how we serve the public to be as easy and user-friendly as possible. And I suppose my challenge to anyone who receives data from us is, well, how, if we're making mistakes over and over again, what's the best way you can prompt us not to? Because it's a two-way street. Because I promise you one thing, as frustrated as you are, we probably are in the same. If we're getting it wrong, we probably don't know. You don't know what you don't know in that sense. And so it's that my view on this would be, we welcome feedback. Feedback, as much as it's a gift and people say that and grin, it is if you can help us do a better job. It is if you can help us improve road safety. It is if you can make sure that our officer time is not wasted. Because any sort of double keying, any sort of efficiencies we can find frees officers up to get more information, to protect more people. It works for us. And as you know, one of the things that I just want to probably raise is, you know, how do changes impact our data? So changes to what is classed as serious will have a significant impact, both in terms of what our figures look like, but also how we compare year on year. And does that drive perverse responses? So if the Safer Roads Partnership in Staffordshire has been working really hard and sees an increase in serious injuries, despite us thinking every intervention we've done is successful, how does that then reflect internally for us and our partners? And how does that drive motivation for those officers and police staff and our partner staff that are going out there into schools, that are resurfacing roads, that are putting up better signs? Does it feel like we're shouting at the wind at that point if the data is somewhat misunderstood and the context is lost within that? And then I would love someone to help me and help UK policing reduce error and really translate what is qualitative, what we see, what we hear, what we feel into that quantitative data. But we want to do it consistently for 143,000 officers who deal with 100,000 collisions every single year as a minimum. And that is where we would, you know, we love that feedback. We would love to know, and we would love some sort of national conversation to continue around that, because the only way we can improve that is by getting consistency, by having the same approach. And I just want to put an ad lib in here. This is not me supporting very large individual police forces for regions. This is more about a consistent agreement between everybody. And how can we improve our data picture to clear us, to ensure that we have a clear understanding? So when we talk about road harm index, do you think crash is enough? Do you think there are data sources out there that we should be tapping into, asking for access to really enrich our approach to that? So that's what we've got. Probably, I am Northern, I do talk too much, so I probably have encroached a bit into Q&A time, but I'd just like to thank you all for your time. Scott and I are more than happy to take any questions, but I will stop sharing so we can perhaps see each other and speak there.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you very, very much for your time today. Absolutely fascinating. And I think just to have an understanding of some of the challenges that frontline officers face each and every day, multiple times a day on occasion, and how that impacts the data that is being collated at the actual scene, and how that feeds into the whole chain of collision recording and all the rest of it is absolutely fascinating. There are some questions in the Q&A, which I'll quite happily go through. Nathan, was there anything you wanted to add before I go through the Q&A?
No, I think let's jump in. We've got quite a few questions.
All right. Okay, cool. I'll start at the top then, guys. So in the light of current HR challenges in policing, excuse me, how did you secure the necessary high-level support, Chief Constable, PCC, etc., for the creation of this innovative road crime prevention team? What was the primary rationale you relied on to get priority for road safety, which is rarely the case? So how and why did Staffordshire invest, I guess?
I suppose I can answer that one, Rob. So I think we were very fortunate with our then Chief Constable, Chris Noble, who had a very clear vision from the start, and also having a temporary assistant Chief Constable that was ex-Roads Policing helped. So for those that may know Mr. Paul Talbot, he was Roads Policing in the West Midlands, transferred over to Staffordshire. So he'd done Lewis's role previously. He'd managed the Serious Collision Investigation Unit as part of the Central Motorway Policing Group as well. So we got a real vested interest in this space. We also had very good support from our Office of Police and Fire Commissioner's Office in terms of very high up on their agenda is road safety. Our road safety board is actually chaired by the commissioner or the deputy commissioner. So again, it was like pushing an open door, to be honest, with both the executive and the commissioner's office from that perspective. But also we portrayed a very strong argument for the fact that Staffordshire hadn't had that level of responsibility for its road network for nearly 40 years. When you look at the devastation that RTCs and the work that Lewis investigates in particular, you're far greater risk on the roads than any other element of policing. And for us, it was absolutely crucial that we looked for that link as well between targeting high harm road users, criminality, and reducing KSI. So it was a multi-factored approach, which to date has worked really well.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not sure we're going to get through all of these questions, to be honest with you, so I will leave the chat open and hopefully we can take a look afterwards and perhaps respond online if that makes sense, if it's possible to do that. Right, I'll get through as many as I can then. So if we could design an ideal data-driven or telematics tool to support safer police driving and serious collision investigation, what would it need to show you in practice to be genuinely useful? Just in one.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Because we obviously internally we have force telematics across our entire vehicle fleet, anything with four wheels at the minute, and we're rolling out into our bikes as well. And the interesting thing around telematics is that we've changed the settings in relation to what would be expected of a standard driver, what would be expected of an advanced driver, because there are level of driver training is about safety, and it's always a safety course. It's not a drive fast course, is what they come back in. The feedback always is. But data-driven telematics tools support safer police driving or serious collision investigation. I don't think necessarily those two meet. It's very rare. We're very fortunate that we don't have a lot of serious injury ITCs in relation to police-related accidents or POLACs. That we have seen a massive reduction since the introduction of our telematics system. It's not a big brother who's watching, it's more of a, we're giving you feedback on what is probably appropriate and not appropriate. But that took a lot of testing. In relation to serious collision investigation, vehicle telematics is often, it's not readily available, but we can have it and as car technology is improved, it does now help us in terms of airbag module and infotainment system downloads. We get a lot more data from cars, from central computers than we ever did. what would it need to show in practice to be genuinely useful? Any system that is readily available is more useful than our current process, because we had a Tesla incident not too long ago, no driver error, but at the time of the incident, the driver was able to hand us a USB stick and show us in HD what had happened. We have transport managers from haulage companies that, while we are at scenes of probably some of the biggest devastation, because whenever something that weighs 16 tons hits something, it makes a mess. Whilst I'm at the scene, I'm having evidence.com links shared with me to show me what's actually happened from a driver perspective. I think the availability of the information is probably just as important about how much information you have, because data is limited in respect of, you could say, well, that, the brakes were pressed at this time. Okay, but I still have to do a mechanical examination to make sure the brakes were intact. So if we could design an ideal telematics tool, what would it need to be in practice? It needs to be accessible. It would need to be clear around those key factors, but it would also need to be tempered in terms of, it isn't the be all and end all, because there are so many human factors in crashes that I don't believe that any system could ever really truly understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. I'm glad I retired before you put telematics on the bikes, I have to say. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I'm interested in knowing what information you share with local highway authorities in the immediate aftermath of fatal and severe crashes, and how you keep them up to date in your ongoing investigation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this one's a really interesting one, because we share a building with some highways. We obviously have a shared hailing channel. One of the key considerations is that any RTC that is serious will be attended by someone who's a lead road death investigator, because our 24-hour road crime team and my team are lead trained, and we're rolling out further training. Part of that course is partnership information sharing. So we share our logs, we share updates. One of the things we're looking to push towards, and this is highways shared, is, can we have scene assessments early? So, and what we're seeing now is, actually, while we've got officers at the scene of serious RTCs, the two-way conversations are going on between direct calls to the scene or through our control room to tell them, and even share images to say, this is going to be the damage, this is going to be the cleanup required, this is our estimate of how long it's going to be before the road can be reopened. So it is, the information sharing is there. It's not necessarily an immediate aftermath, it's normally at the time of it. I would probably say that it falls on me then to say that once everything's kind of on with the investigation, that is when it probably drops away slightly. And that's probably something we could work on better in the future. There certainly isn't an ask for an update afterwards, but we feed back in terms of what we've identified through the causation. So if we also have our Safer Roads Partnership, yeah, and our Staffordshire Police internal road safety campaign. So there are probably several forums after that immediate communication where that detailed data is shared at that level.
Excellent. I'm conscious we've got about 1 minute left to go, so I'm not going to ask any more questions. I'm just going to reflect, really, and thank you again for your time this morning. I think that's been a real fascinating conversation. I think it's achieved everything that we wanted to achieve, really, and start these conversations and get a better understanding of one another's roles within the two communities. I would encourage any feedback. If this is the kind of webinar that you've enjoyed and you found insightful, if you'd like us to hold more of these, then please let us know in the chat, I guess, or in the Q&A. Is probably the best place to leave that kind of feedback. We will try and go in and answer the questions between us, Scott, Lewis and myself. But other than that, just again to thank you for your time, and think that about wraps it up. Have I missed anything, Nathan, or are we good?
All good, Rob. Just to say a big thank you again to Scott and Lewis. I found that really insightful, and I'm keen that we strengthen these connections in terms of the analyst community who very much use the data and try and drive insight from it. and then you guys who are at the sharp end collecting that data, attending RTCs, etc. I think it's important we work well together on this, because as Rob said at the start, we've all got the same mission to reduce the number of KSIs on our roads.
100%. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks all. Stay safe.